All right. We will move on to another question from a viewer in St. Peter. This is a question we have not had previously, at least not had the opportunity to ask, and it's an election law question. Viewer is a proponent of ranked choice voting and wants to know whether or not the panel supports ranked choice voting and whether or not it's something that might see the light of day in this legislative session. Representative Swedzinski, let's start with you. I think it's your turn to bat here. Tell us all about ranked choice voting and whether you agree or disagree with it and what you think its prospects are.
Well, I'm not positive. I haven't heard a lot of it. I think the most I heard about ranked choice voting was waiting on the Alaska results. I think they have a similar program up in Alaska, and I'm not sure if there's a couple other states as well. I know some cities have it. I'm generally, I think we should just, I like the current program as far as just voting for someone, whether having a third or a fourth or a fifth choice down the line. I think, I'd hate to say I'm an expert on it, but the little I know of it, I think I'd rather stick with what we currently have rather than change it up.
Senator Frentz, ranked choice voting.
Well, first of all, I think I know the Nicollet caller on CWD because it's a taxidermist in Nicollet. Not that I'm going to out him. And I think I know who the ranked choice voter is in St. Peter. Those are both, of course, in my district. I am not quite there yet on ranked choice voting. I do appreciate one feature of it, and I've watched Alaska where they had to wait a couple weeks, which I did not like. But they did create an environment where there was a little more incentive to build a more positive campaign. And I think there's some virtue in that. So I have been approached by ranked choice voting advocates. I'm well aware that some places are very happy with it. I take nothing away from those elected officials that succeeded under ranked choice voting. I'm not saying they're not worthy. I just think our current system strikes me as more straightforward. And I do appreciate the promptness of the current system. I think the voters get a plus when they find out the results of the election relatively soon after they vote. And in Minnesota, where we sometimes have the highest voter turnout in the nation, we get the results to the people pretty quickly, usually by at least early morning, most of the results. And I think that's a virtue too. So I'll probably get in trouble for saying this. And I would give this, I know the ranked choice voting folks are watching. As an entity, they are extremely motivated on the campaign side. I mean, they work super hard. For those candidates that support ranked choice voting, they turn out in high numbers. We saw that in some districts. I respect that. It's not just do you support an issue, but how passionately. So I give the ranked choice voting people a thumbs up on their enthusiasm. I'm just not quite there yet, and I'm happy to stay open-minded and see what happens. Maybe there'll be some developments in ranked choice voting that'll seem more favorable, or some of the negatives will seem less of an issue. Stay tuned.
Senator Mathews, I'm going to ask you about ranked choice voting, and I generally stay out of affirmative or negative positions on these issues. But one feature of ranked choice voting requires voters to know how they feel about candidates. If you've got 1, 2, or 3 candidates, maybe it's not as big a deal. But if you have 4 or 5 candidates running, and you're supposed to rank them, I think one theoretical problem, maybe it's a problem, maybe it's not, is that the participants in a ranked choice voting scheme is the wrong word, format, plan, the participants may know how they feel about candidate number 1, candidate number 2, but they may not know much about candidates 3, 4, and 5 in terms of how they rank them. And there's an air of artificiality about that that causes me to wonder, do we know enough about how the system works in elections generally? But having said that, I understand there are contra arguments, and the floor is yours. Ranked choice voting, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, sitting on the elections committee, I have seen this bill come through. I'm not a supporter of it. I think it's problematic in a couple respects. You talk about trying to understand, your whole list of candidates, and that's something that we should be doing today in our current system. And there are races, I think of, maybe your city council races, your county races, county commissioner, etc. School board. We already have ballots where we have a list of names that could be larger, that some races are voting for multiples at one time. And so it always is good practice to try to study up and know what you think about each candidate. But I agree with Senator Frentz, the timing aspect is very troubling. The fact that you have to expect these to take days, if not weeks, and in this current political environment, we should be pushing to try to go the other way. With all the technology advancements we have in our nation, with all the willing volunteers and election judges we could train, there's no reason that we can't have a good, strong, secure election, have every valid vote cast and counted in a short period of time, and ranked choice voting takes it away from that. Also, I feel it's troubling on the one person, one vote equation. You'll have some people where they'll vote for one person, and that's who their vote's counted for, and other people will cast a ballot and you can vote for person A. Unless that one doesn't quite work out, then you can have your vote cast for person B, and if that one doesn't quite work out, then we go down to C. And so the inequality with how that gets applied is troubling to me, and it makes me very wary based on our constitutional one person, one vote system. So I'm not a fan of it either. It has been moving through committee. I don't know how far the majority is planning to take it or whether they have the votes for it, but I think there's a lot of good in our current system. We could make it better, and I just don't see ranked choice voting being a part of that.